As always, please mute your mics, everyone. Please mute your mics. Okay, like I said, we're finishing off Kilobatra today and we're moving on to Christopher Marlowe. Please mute your mic. Kindly mute your mic. Noha Abdelkader, mute your mic. Noha Abdelkader. Hanin. Okay. So again, one final time before we get started, I'm sharing my screen. I'm hopeful that you can see it. Okay, so what is it that we're going to do tonight or today? We're going to finish off with Cleopatra and then move to Christopher Marlowe. And I would like to ask you whether you have had any chance to go over the notes that you have taken last time. Have you, by any chance, read any of the notes that you may have taken during class last time? Did you? It's a simple yes or no, by the way. Yes or no? Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, doctor. Yes, sure.
okay. Okay. Yes, and mute your mic. Thank you so much. So it's Cleopatra, everyone. We've been talking about Cleopatra for over the past 2 weeks, and we seem to be by now too familiar with her in terms of what other people said about her. I mean, our own assessment of what Cleopatra was like in terms of character, in terms of behavior, is yet to come today. And the reason why we haven't come up with our fresh assessments over the past 2 weeks is that we're listening to what other people are saying about her, and then we can study what they say and see whether what they say is objective or not, and then we start giving our own conclusions and assessments. Okay. One big lesson we learned over the past 2 weeks was the idea of not taking things for granted. You shouldn't be accepting what other people are saying or writing for granted. You shouldn't accept what they say as is. You need to challenge the sources. You need to check whether those sources are objective or not. You need to also check whether there are motives and agendas behind the statements that are made about other people, right? Our impression, and this is going to be either confirmed or refuted tonight, our impressions are that Kilobatra has been done injustice to. People treated her in an unfair way, if you like, and we only listen to this part of the story that was given to us by the Romans. And the Romans were enemies, and you don't expect an enemy to say nice stuff about you. So we have obviously learned the lesson, or our lesson, and we're not going to take for granted whatever the Romans are saying about it. Unfortunately, while piecing together the different parts or pieces of this puzzle, we were left with only, the only sources that we had was of the Romans, and a scanty profile provided by the Egyptians, and the Egyptians were focusing on artifacts. I mean, hard stuff. Could be coins, could be statues, but nothing was written from the perspective of Egyptians. It is also interesting to know that it was not only Cleopatra who was, treated unfairly. There was also talk about the Egyptians, the Egyptians of the time, and their civilization, and they were given bad labels and bad epithets. Um, whether this was true or wrong is perhaps the subject of another day, but the focus would be on the idea of sweeping generalizations. You cannot accuse a whole race or an entire culture of being this or that. Sweeping conclusions and stereotypical attitudes are rampant at the time and even now, and people have to be aware of that. Okay, you wouldn't judge an entire race or an entire country based on separate or individual incidents or separate and individual encounters that you may have with an individual from this country or culture. No one represents his or her culture. If I do something wrong, it doesn't mean that my entire country is on the wrong, right? So these are some of the lessons that we have learned together over the past 2 weeks. When we started off last time, can you kindly mute your mic? Whoever is keeping her mic on, please mute your mic. Okay. So if you still remember, we started off with the impressions that people have about the character of Kilobatra, and the impressions that they uh, have of Kilobatra has been given for the most part by the media, whether this media was ancient media, as given in biographies and in histories and even in literature, or modern media. And by modern media, of course, we mean the cinema. Of course, the cinema, of all the other media, the cinema stands out as the most influential because of the pictures that were given. Uh, Mute your mic. Reem, Reem, mute your mic, please. Guys, can you hear what I hear? Is it only me or everybody else? Reem.
No, we cannot hear. It's so noisy.
Very nice.
Yes,
Reem,
we can hear you.
yes. Reem, mute your mic. Reem,
Sorry.
Reem, Reem, mute your mic. Okay. Yes, she muted her mic, which has taken like 2 minutes of our time, and this is not acceptable. Anyway, like I said, the cinema is responsible for perhaps most of the impressions that we have of Cleopatra. And by the cinema, of course, we talk about American cinema and we talk about Hollywood. And then after we finished with that, we moved all the way to Rome. Remember, we had three destinations or three places that we visited. We started off with ancient Rome 2,000 years ago. And then after that, we will move to Egypt at the same time, and then come all the way back to the modern age. Okay. So what did we say about Rome? Do you still remember? We had a number of figures Some of them are historians, others are, biography writers, and we have a poet, Horus. Okay, these are the Roman sources that we have. Um, we started off with the image that people have of Cleopatra at the time, the Romans. What do the Romans say about Kilobatra? As you have seen, most of the impressions that they had of her were negative because of the war that the Romans waged against the Egyptians under Kilobatra. Again, you also need to always remember that Rome and the Romans were a conservative society that does not give or assign any roles to women. Women were looked upon with perhaps contempt and despise. They were not given huge or major roles. So for a woman to come from overseas and try to exercise power, try to perhaps defeat Rome and become the queen of the Romans, that would be, a little bit unacceptable by the Romans. That's why they start to, kind of call her names and speak about her as a witch, as somebody who doesn't have the skills and the intelligence, but it's only through witchcraft that she is having this power over, the Roman military leaders that she came across. So again, the fact that she is a woman and the fact that she is a foreigner would account for the negative reviews that we have of her. So the negative reviews that we have of her were given by three Roman individuals. We started off last time with, what's his name? Cassius Dio, and then we moved on to Plutar, and then we're moving today to Horus, the poet, and then we move to Egypt. So while in Rome, let's start with Cassius Dio. So Cassius Dio is a historian. So we're talking about history here. Okay, so what kind of history is he reproducing? I'm talking about Cassius Dio. Actually, he's talking about a speech that was given by Octavian. This was during the build up to the Battle of Actium. So he was giving a speech in order to energize his base and in order to energize his soldiers. Remember what he said? Of course, Cassius Dio is kind of reconstructing or restaging the speech. He is saying that this is, or he is claiming rather, that the speech was given by Octavian. Okay, we need to always remember that Cassius Dio was writing or reconstructing the speech 150 years after the events took place. So we have to keep this in mind. Okay, so what did Octavian say in his speech? Just remember the Octavian speech. This was during the run-up for the Battle of Actium against Antony and Cleopatra. Just to remember. Hello, I'm asking
Yes,
you.
yes,
Yes,
Okay, come to the
yes.
mic, give me your name, and then you are on your way. Okay, so
This
let's
is
talk about
Rana,
Hannah. Yes.
and he said a lot of things about Cleopatra and Antony. He said, how come just a woman coming a queen? And he said about Antony, he just a lover and dancer, while he have to be a fighter, something like this.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Can we have somebody else quickly?
Yes, doctor.
Okay, go ahead.
He mentioned how the Egyptians were so uncivilized and they followed reptiles and they followed a woman, a leader, an Egyptian woman, and that she couldn't stand a chance in front of the great Romans. And he mentioned how Antony was bewitched by Cleopatra.
Yeah, interesting.
And he just kept going on and on about like how they are the greatest, and all of like the rest of the world is just like not on their level.
Okay. Do you still remember that he didn't give her any credit? He didn't say anything good about her. Am I correct in, am I reading him correctly? Did he give her any credit? Did he
No,
say
not at all.
anything? Not at all. Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
It was all negative. It was all denigrating. Denigrating means that he was attacking all the time, and he moved from the individual to the entire race. He started off talking about her as a queen who is exercising and practicing witchcraft to the entire race. I mean, he's accusing Egyptians of worshipping reptiles, right? Still remember that? And the fact that they worship her and she's a woman and all these kinds of things. So negative, he was negative all the time. Again, you need to take what he says with a grain. When it comes to facts, you have to take whatever he says with a grain of salt. And the simple reason would be the fact that he was writing whatever he was writing 200 years after the events. So his account is not an eyewitness account. It is not the account of somebody who was there, who lived during the time and saw things for himself. We don't have what we call first-hand account of what is happening. It's perhaps second or third hand, where somebody told him about it, and somebody told someone about it. So it's not a fresh first-hand account of eyewitness account of what actually happened. Together with the fact that he would have his own motives, given the fact that he is Roman, and Romans were both against Egypt and against women, right? Egypt at the time was perhaps a rival or a competitor, and Kilobatra is a woman, and like I said, women were not, given what they deserve in terms of prestige, in terms of fair treatment, and all these kinds of things. Okay, and then we move to Plutar. And if you still remember, Plutar was also a Roman who came perhaps 150 years after the events. So again, whether it's 200 years or 150 years after, that would cast a lot of doubt on what those guys are saying. You would have to take whatever they say with a grain of salt. In terms of the time, I mean, the gap between what actually happened and their account of it, and also the fact that they express and communicate Roman attitudes against Egypt and also against women in general. So Plutarch was writing. I mean, he wrote, what we call biographies, and his reasons for writing those biographies. He wrote biographies of famous leaders. I mean, at the time and prior. And when he was asked for or why he was writing that, he was saying that if I present a capable, decent, morally upright leader, I'm giving people examples that they can follow. And if I'm giving examples of fallen individuals and fallen leaders. I'm also giving people examples. I'm trying to tell them not to follow the example of those fallen individuals. Where does Antony and Cleopatra fit into this big moralistic picture? They would fit into the category of fallen heroes and leaders. For Plutar, Antony and Cleopatra were not very good examples to follow. He would feature them in his book in order to warn people against following them or against copying and imitating them. So the focus in Plutarch was obviously on presenting the character of Antony, and he also spoke about Kilobatra. So how much do you still remember about Plutarch and his account of Antony? Do you still remember what he said?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, come to the mic, say get your name, and then.
Sarah Muhammad.
Yes, go ahead.
Plutar, who wrote a biography about Antony, he describes him Cleopatra's lover, and that she has a fatal influence of him.
She has a fatal influence on him. The fact that
he also claims that she is temptation personified.
Okay, she is temptation.
Yeah, and Kilobatra brings the worst in Antony and suppresses the best.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Sarah. Can we have somebody else? Then
yes,
obviously
me.
Sarah was reading from the book, which is
yes,
fine.
me, Doctor.
Okay, what's your name? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Me or?
You. Go ahead.
My name is Arwa Abdu.
Okay, Arwa.
He mentioned that Cleopatra had a huge effect on Antony, that she made him lose his mind and all sense of responsibility. That's it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay, so it was basically about the influence, the fatal influence of.
Hello.
Can we mute the mic, please? Okay. So somebody wanted to say something.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
My name is Amira.
Okay.
The only thing that Plutarch admires is her honorable death. It is well done and fitting for a princess who descendants of royal kings.
Yeah, this is perhaps what Plutarch and after him Horus will share, the admiration that they have for her. Remember, was it Plutarch that spoke about her character, and he was referring to the fact that it's not about her beauty. She captivates people through her strength of character. Was it Plutarch that spoke about that aspect in Kilobatra's personality? Hello.
Yes, doctor.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Plutarch, he said Cleopatra, she wasn't beautiful. My name is Roland Najjar. Plutarch, he said Cleopatra, she wasn't that beautiful, but she has an attractive personality that she affects Antony and the other men.
Okay. Remember, we summed it up. We said that when you have this kind of personality, what do we call you? We say that we have, in our modern terms, what do we use for this attractive personality kind of thing?
We use it as a
Charisma. Yeah.
Yes.
She was very charismatic. Yeah, very good. Very good. Yes. Okay. So she, according to Plutarch, she was bad and everything, and she was a fatal influence of on Antony. He's now not the. I mean, the Antony that everybody was proud of. He is perhaps an effeminate, he is reckless, and all these kinds of things, right? But the only redeeming point, the only good point about her was the fact that she refused to be, taken to Rome and be humiliated in front of everybody. She decided to take her own life. She put on her royal clothes and she had herself killed through a snake. And for Plutar, this was a very dignified kind of death that he respects and honors, right? So let's move to Horus. And if we move to Horus, for those who know Horus, Horus was a poet, who was a Roman poet. He came after the event, a little after the events, and he used to operate and write poetry during the reign and the age of Octavian. And he is, of course, Roman. You can almost tell what kind of attitudes would he adopt when it comes to talking about Cleopatra. Okay, so he wrote a poem, and perhaps this is the only poetic source or literary source that we have of Kilobatra. I don't know where we can. I think it's in the book. Have you gone through the poem? Do we have the poem?
Yeah, it's page 28.
Page what?
28.
28. Let's go to the poem and read it for ourselves. 28. Okay. If you guys have the book handy, you can always open it. 28. Hopefully that this is not going to take long. Okay. 28. We're almost there. Okay. Fine. Okay, this is the poem. Can you see that? Can you see the poem? Yes, good. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so it's an
Yes,
ode.
doctor.
Yes, okay. So it's an ode, and an ode is a variation on the word poem. It's a kind of poetry where at one point it would be lyrical and it would focus on the emotions of the poet or the persona of the poem, and at other times it would be used to celebrate achievements, national days, and all these kinds of things. Okay, so obviously this poem is focusing on the second aspect of odes, which focuses on national achievements and national honors. Again, reading poetry is different from reading any other discourse, as you may know. Poetry is different from, perhaps reading prose, novels, short stories, because poetry depends on the idea and relies on the idea of intensity, the intensification of words and ideas. Whatever other people can say in books upon books, you can have in a small poem. I think you have experience reading poetry, and you know that poetry also does not lend itself to easy interpretation. You perhaps need to read a poem more than once in order to come up with the right conclusions, if any. And I think you're familiar with this statement in Arabic when they say that the meaning is in the stomach of the poet. So what does it mean? المعنى في بطن الشاعر. Yes, it's simply means that when you read a poem, you come up with so many interpretations and sensations, and other people come up with other interpretations and sensations, and it's almost impossible for people to agree on one single interpretation of a poem. We're talking about people. We are also talking about one single person. If you read a poem at perhaps 17, and then come back to the same poem at 37, and come back to the same poem at perhaps 60, you're going to see that your interpretations collide and they don't agree. The more reading you put into something, the more ideas that you come out with. It depends on your background. It depends on how depends on your worldview, which differs from one age to another. So the bottom line would be that you need to treat poetry with caution. Poetry does not give itself to easy interpretation. You have to read more than once. When you read a poem, you need to know that there are two levels of reading. You have the surface meaning and you have the deep meaning. The surface meaning would be the literal interpretation or the literal meaning of the words that you have in front of you, while the deep meaning would have to do with the associations that you make and the connections that you make between the words on the page and your ideas of the world, whatever you have read in the past, your background, your level of education, your culture, and all these kinds of things. Again, this is a poem by Horus, and Horus, like we said, happens to be Roman. And when I say Roman, you have to always remember that Romans were conservative, and that Romans were, enemies to the Egyptians and to Cleopatra. So let's read the poem and see what it is offering in terms of the assessment of the character of Kilobatra. I'll give you 2 minutes, and perhaps 3, because like I said, poetry is not easy to read. Okay, I'll give you 3 minutes, and then we talk about the ideas that we have, whether about Kilobatra or Antony or perhaps both. You guys have 3 minutes from now. Go ahead. You
Okay.
may want to take notes even. Okay. I'll read it myself and come up with my notes and my impressions. Okay, are we done? I wouldn't be surprised if you say no, because like I said, poetry takes time, right?
Can I try?
Yeah, we'll try together. And are we all done? I mean, reading the poem. Okay. Before you try, and this applies to everyone, I would like you to give me key words that you have spotted from the poem and that can tell us things about Cleopatra and how Horus looks on her. Can you give me key words? These are words that would form your opinion and your impressions of the poem. Go ahead.
Um,
Yes.
Hello. Um, Kilobatra is a crazy
No.
queen.
Yeah. Okay. So the word crazy, right?
Yeah. And
Okay.
reckless.
Mad Queen.
And reckless.
This is your interpretation. The word reckless is obviously a modern word.
Miss.
It's not there. So
Okay.
I agree. You have the word mad, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Or any other significant keyword? Okay. Thank you so much. Can we have somebody else?
Hello.
Yes. Go ahead.
Mad Queen, diseased by vice.
This.
That she was the vice.
Okay. So you have the word diseased and you have the word vice.
And about her death, there was something about her death.
Okay, give me specific words. And those specific words would trigger ideas at the back of your mind. So,
There is
okay.
also humble.
What?
Humble and proud.
Okay, so if you say so, the word humble. Okay.
The word
Nobler
trunk.
death.
The word what?
Maybe monster.
Monster. Okay.
Nobler death.
Nobler. Nobler. Death.
Nobler death.
The word
Oh,
poison.
not,
Nobler
so not every single word. I mean, we're talking about significant words. Okay. Okay. Anyway, so
Repeating the word. Oh,
if
sorry.
you, yeah, if you ask me, okay, can somebody is having the mic on? Please mute your mic. Okay. Okay. So let me give you my and the words that I have seen significant and that would lead or contribute to my assessment of the poem myself. So you have the word mad, right? You have the word contaminated, right? You have the word capital, and I'll tell you what capital means in a minute. The word or the phrase rather, hope unlimited, hope unlimited. Okay, so what else? Okay, what other words? And then you go all the way down to the phrase nobler death. Okay. And this is basically the words and the phrases that I see very significant, and like I said, that would lead and contribute to my overall assessment of the poem.
What about serene face?
Yes, I mean this is yeah. We have, of course, we have lots of words. Okay, I'm giving you the words that I see significant and that would again uh, help me come up with conclusions about the poem in general. So as you can see, the poem, it's not too long. Just give me a second. Let me finish my story and then you are on your way. Again, did you let me, before I share with you what I feel about the poem, did you feel any change of heart change of heart in the sense that the poet may have started in a certain way and then over time he changed his direction a little bit. Have you seen that? Have you felt that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, from despise to respect.
Okay, so this is true. He started off, showing contempt and despise and disdain, making fun of her and of her people even. But towards the end, we have a change of heart. We call it a change of heart, where there is a measure of respect for
And sympathy, kind of.
or sympathy. The bottom line would be that we have a change of heart, and this change of heart is positive, right? Okay, so let's focus on the first part, and obviously the first part was very negative, right? Okay, so again, if you ask about words that would indicate this kind of negative attitude, typically negative attitude towards Kilobatra, you will have words like mad, right? When he says mad queen, and mad, of course, I mean, if I describe somebody as mad, this is bad, right? Isn't that right? That mad is a bad word?
Yes.
And even okay, even the word queen is also bad. For the Romans, the word queen is negative and is bad, and people may ask, how is that? Why? Queen is such a nice word. Okay, everybody
It's
wants.
like mocking her.
Okay. No, it's simply because of, if you look at the system of government in Rome at the time, Rome was not a kingdom or a dukedom where you have a queen or a king. At the time, Rome was a republican. Republican means that you have elected representative bodies like a parliament, a senate, where people sit together and they agree on things. Okay, you're familiar with parliaments, of course. You have elected members, right? And then they decide on things. You don't have one single individual who takes all the decisions and does not consult other people. So when Horus says that she's mad, she's not only mad, she is also a queen. And people at the time, the Romans at the time, would associate the word queen with negative connotations and negative ideas. The idea of dictatorship, the idea of having one single individual pulling all the threads and manipulating the threads, not giving other people the chance to express their views and opinions. See? Are you getting the idea? And then at one point he said the ruin of the capital. The capital is the parliament, the place where elected members sit and they talk and they negotiate and they come up with deals and agreements. Okay, so again, he's saying that this mad queen that we call Cleopatra had hope unlimited. She had ambitions. She wanted to be the queen of Rome, and if she becomes the queen of Rome, our democracy is going to be compromised, and we will not have democracy. That we will not have a capital where people take decisions in a democratic way. So bottom line, she would change our way of life altogether. Okay, so again, this is the first part. The first part is about the negative aspects that the Romans are afraid of should Kilobatra win, and should she become the queen of the Romans. She is mad, and she's going to come up with very crazy ideas. She is also the queen of a contaminated flock of men. You know, of men means, of course, Egyptians. They are contaminated. Contaminated means that they are sick. They carry disease. These are all kinds of denigration and attack on the Egyptians. So a mad queen ruling over a contaminated race of people. Okay. Again, if she wins, and this is what he is warning against, if she ever wins, she would destroy the capital. The capital is their symbol of democracy. Okay, and of course, this will eventually lead to the destruction of their way of life. Again, if you go down, we have more of the same. He's talking about her as deranged. Deranged means that she is also getting crazed and she is mentally ill, okay, because of the ambitions that she nurses and she has. Okay, until the moment comes when, Octavian is going to defeat her and defeat Antony, and in this case, she all her ambitions are going to come to an end, and we will, restore our confidence in our leadership. This is the first part. And then we move towards the end of the poem. And like I said, you have a change of attitude, a change of heart, and a change of tone. There is, Horus is displaying some kind of respect, if you like, sympathy, if you like, admiration, if you like, for Cleopatra. And this admiration is based on the idea that she decided not to kind of give herself up to the Romans, and then they take her all the way to Rome. They humiliate her in front of everybody. She decided to take her own death. And this is, by the way, a typical Roman attitude, and perhaps this is the reason why Horace likes it. The idea that, and this is what we were told in history, whenever a Roman soldier is about to be defeated, on the verge of defeat, he, of course, they don't have she's at the time. He, of course, would take his own life. He would stab himself to death using his own sword. He is saying that she, in this way, she's acting like valiant and courageous Roman soldiers. In their moment of defeat, they don't surrender themselves. They don't give themselves up to the enemy, and they prefer to kill themselves. And this is what she exactly did. She decided to put on her royal clothes and stay where she is, and somehow have or has a snake bite her. This is what he refers to as nobler death. And he's saying also that she didn't have the typical fear or fears of women. Of course, these are his ideas, not mine. I do admire and respect women. Okay, so she doesn't have the fear that every woman has, and she is taking her own life. This is the reason why he feels that she. I mean, that's the reason why he admires her towards the end of the poem. Do you agree with my interpretation, or perhaps you have a different reading of the poem? Go ahead. Hello.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Okay. So let's go up. So as you can see, when it comes to the spin at Rome, when it comes to Cassius Dio, we don't have any admiration whatsoever for Cleopatra. All what we hear or what we read is denigrating and is fatal and fierce attack on Kilobatra as a witchcraft practitioner, as a seductive individual, as a disruptor of peaceful households, right? When we go to Plutar, we have variations on all these negative aspects, but with perhaps some kind of backhanded compliment, where there is also talk about the idea that she died an honorable kind of death. With Plutarch, the focus is more on Antony, right? And how he is now cannot restore his former self as a great soldier, and how he became effeminate. Effeminate means woman-like, and how he behaves in a reckless way. And then we move to Augustine poetry as represented by Horus. And with Horus, we have an ode or a poem where he starts off by saying that we should be celebrating and drinking wine in celebration, and then all of a sudden he stops and say, no, we should wait and stuff. And then we have this tension in the poem. We have this hesitation. He starts off calling on people to celebrate, and then all of a sudden he stops, says, no, let's wait and see. And then again he says, yeah, now that the defeat of Cleopatra is declared, we should be celebrating. When it comes to the character of Kilobatra, and as you can see, he didn't mention Antony at all. The focus was entirely on Kilobatra, and you have the typical stereotypes about her, the fact that she is, of course, a queen, she's a woman, she's crazy, and she's ruling a race of contaminated individuals, and the fact that she has ambitions to conquer Rome and turn Rome into a dictatorship, which they wouldn't accept. And then all of a sudden we have a change of heart, if you like, where Horus started to perhaps take pity on Kilobatra at one point, describing her as a dove and describing the Romans as hawks. And then over time, he will give her some credit by saying that she died a dignified kind of death. She died a typical Roman death. I mean, like I said, Roman soldiers, when they are defeated, they don't submit or surrender themselves to the enemy. They would rather kill themselves. Is that clear? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, doctor.
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
Good.
Clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
doctor.
Okay, good. So let's now move to In Search of Cleopatra. We'll talk about Cleopatra. Perhaps we're moving away from Rome, and we're going to the south. Of course, Rome is in the north, and Rome is in the west. We're moving to the south, and we're moving east of the Mediterranean, where Egypt is located. Okay, you can almost, okay. So we wouldn't subscribe to the ideas about Egypt as given by the Romans, because for obvious reasons. Stop using the mic. Somebody is leafing through the book. Just leave the book alone for a while, and then we can always use it. So again, in search of Kilobatra is this part of the chapter where we're no longer in Rome. Where are we now? We are in Egypt, in the south. Okay, so in Egypt and in the south, we will have, accounts of Cleopatra as given by the Egyptians, not the Romans this time around. How much is much when it comes to the accounts that we have? Are the accounts that we have, reliable? They can give us a fair picture of Cleopatra. Are they written accounts, or what kind of accounts? Remember, when we were in Rome, we had history written, we also had biographies written, and we also had literature and poetry. When we move to the Egyptians in the south, when we move to Egypt, what kind of accounts will we have? Do we have written accounts? Those who have read the chapter, can you come to the mic and tell us what we are in for?
Maybe they would like have coins or.
Okay, a point of order, and this is very important. I would like whoever comes to the mic, you guys are perhaps 100 or more, and until this moment I'm not able to recognize voices, and I would like to give you credits. Whoever is participating should be given credit. Okay, so the credit that we will have for now would be that you come to the mic, you mention or you say your name, and then you start sharing your ideas.
Yes, okay. My name is Dania Kojak.
Dalia Kojak, yes.
Dania Benoon.
Dania.
Yes.
Okay.
So maybe the Egyptian sources would be like coins or arts on the wall, carved and written in hieroglyphic.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yes, and maybe some statues and some of sayings they were saying about her, something like that. Like that's my idea.
Okay. Thank you, Dania. Let me ask you this question. Do you think, now that you have read the written accounts of the Romans, do you think that would be enough to give us perhaps a fair assessment of the character of Cleopatra? Do you think that the sources that we have by the Egyptians would compete and perhaps be better than those of the Romans? What do you think?
You're asking me, right?
Yeah, yes.
They would not compete completely. Like at the end, the Egyptians are the people of Cleopatra, so they would praise her and give her credit for what she done, and they would say like she done that for the country to like.
Do we have? My question is about the availability of resources, written resources. Do we have written resources?
No, we don't.
Okay, and we are as human beings, I think we are creatures of writing, if you like.
Yes, we'd like be reliable on like written things other than like artifacts and stuff like that.
Yes. A statue, with all due respect to those who like and admire statues, what would a statue tell you? Obviously, if you have a piece of writing, we can all read it. But if we have a statue, we can read it and we come up with interpretations and understandings and conclusions. But if you have a statue, obviously not all of us can, understand what the statue stands for. This is exclusive to people who like statues, people who appreciate art, and not all of us can appreciate art. Am I correct? What do you think?
Yes, yes, actually.
Okay, but we can all read. We can all read, but we cannot all appreciate art, whether it's paintings, whether it's statues, music, right? So this is the problem that we may have with the Egyptian account of or accounts of Kilobatra and her character. We cannot entirely depend on artifacts and pieces of art, and that wouldn't be enough, and perhaps that would be one reason why Roman sources are perhaps more widespread, because they are written in books and you can always read them, right? But statues, you'll have to go perhaps to Egypt in order to look at the statues, and you also would need to be able to appreciate art and come up with your own interpretations and stuff. So this is the dilemma that we have with Egyptian sources, that they are not, written sources for the most part, and they are concrete artifacts that do not lend themselves to easy interpretation, that would need educated people, and not all of us are educated, right? Okay, so let's talk about Kilobatra. Let's engage in a bit of history about Kilobatra. How much do you know about Kilobatra? I'm sure you have read that part about Cleopatra. Remember, there was this talk about her disputed heritage and whether she is totally Egyptian or of Greek origins. Do you still remember this part? She was part of a very famous dynasty, and dynasty means a family that rules a country for years and years. So she was part of what's the name of this dynasty that we're talking about? Any idea? Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Could you repeat your question again, please, Doctor?
I'm talking, and I'm moving to the history of Kilobatra as given by perhaps the Egyptians. And I am saying that Kilobatra is a member of a very famous Egyptian dynasty. And I am asking about this dynasty. She was the last of the what?
The Ptolemaic dynasty.
Yes, okay, yes. And who are these people? Are they purely Egyptian?
No, they were served under Alexander.
Okay, so they came all the way from Macedonia, from Greece,
Yeah.
with Alexander. And of course, they lived for hundreds of years in Egypt, and they became more Egyptians than Egyptians themselves, right?
Yeah, and sorry, I didn't say my name. I'm Pascal.
What's your name?
Pascal.
Pascal. Pascal. I think I remember you from perhaps not last time, the time before. Last time
yes,
you were silent.
You said we are friends.
I'm not sure I got that.
You said we were friends the first time I entered the
class. The last time, and that's why I said. I mean, last time you were not there, or you were not. You were perhaps keeping a low profile. But welcome back here, Pascal, my friend. Okay, so Pascal was talking about the fact that Kilobatra is not purely, according to the sources that we have, she's not purely Egyptian. The fact that her family or her dynasty came the forefathers and everyone else came with Alexander from Macedonia and from Greece, right? Of course, they lived in Egypt for hundreds of years, and they became as Egyptian as anybody else, right? Again,
Doctor,
yes, go ahead. What's your
you
name?
said my name is Mahmoud.
Mahmoud.
You said she lives in Egypt for more than 100 years. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Uh,
hundreds of years.
yes,
No,
and there
not
is
her.
an
I'm talking about her family.
okay, and there is an Arabic proverb said, if someone live with a group of people for 40 days, there will be one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I'm
Okay.
trying to say. I mean, I'm saying that. So some people would say, no, she's not Egyptian. She doesn't look like Egyptians. She doesn't behave like Egyptians. And like I said, and you said it, that you only need to live with people for 40 days to become one of them. And this is, of course, a bit of
I
an
think before
exaggeration. Yes, go ahead.
I think I think because she lives with him more years and more.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, why we're saying that? Why are we? It's not us that are disputing and challenging her origins. It's of course it's the Romans for obvious reasons. Okay. The Romans are also, propagating the idea that she was married to one of her brothers, obviously, and she conspired and plotted against her brother, and she had him killed. Okay. If we talk about the idea that she was, she was married to her brother, somebody was talking about this issue the other day, and he said, well, the reason why I don't like her is that she got married to her own brother, and this is not acceptable. And I remember very vividly that I said that you shouldn't be judging people from another culture on your own terms, on your own cultural terms. As Muslims, of course, we don't have, people, brothers and sisters don't get married. But in ancient times, this was a common practice. They had their own religious traditions, and part of those traditions were this idea of remember Osiris and his sister, Isis and Osiris. Are you familiar with this very famous Egyptian myth?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
Osiris and Isis were brother and sister, and
It's
nobody spoke
basically
that.
to keep
Yeah, go ahead.
it's basically to keep the bloodline,
Yeah,
especially
that
for yeah.
yeah, this was the time, of course, people were, when it comes to health, they were very strong and very powerful, and they didn't have the diseases that we have now. I mean, if two people from the same family get married, sometimes we have issues. So these
Yeah,
things
even cousins.
yes, this did not exist at the time. It was a different religion. It was a different culture. And excuse me, and to judge Kilobatra based on that would be doing her injustice. Actually, you would perhaps judge her based on whether she was a good ruler or not, whether the Egyptians at the time liked her or not, right? Not on the idea, not on moralistic grounds. Even the relationships that she had with both Antony and Julius Caesar shouldn't be looked upon from perhaps a different perspective and a different angle of vision, because this is her private life, and sometimes you have to separate between private life and public life. you need to also give her the benefit of the doubt and think of these kinds of practices as maneuvers that she was making in order to get what she wanted. Politically, she was doing a good job. If you ask me, from a political point of view, she was doing a good job. So people shouldn't be mixing and confusing between politics and religion and also ethics and morality. Okay. What else do we know about her? Somebody is, the mic is open with some people and I can hear myself. Okay. Fine. I can still hear myself. What's wrong? Hello? Oh, okay, good. So, okay, so let's talk about the artifacts. Let's talk about the concrete things that we have of Kilobatra back in, we're still in Egypt, mind you. Okay, and obviously the Egyptian civilization at the time was not a civilization of writing, and this does not mean it wasn't good or anything. It was fine and everything, but they would focus more perhaps on building monuments and of course, you know, Egypt. I mean, Egypt is a big museum because every time they wanted to perhaps make a statement, they would come up with a statue or you know, something concrete. This was their way of making statements, their way of telling people about their history. They kept their histories alive by you know, by having those heavy-handed monuments that you can see nowadays. Does this make them less? Of course not. This was their way of expressing expressing themselves and communicating their history. Again, the reason why we're not, you know, it's different nowadays because the world has moved towards writing and writing systems and having statues and having, you know, artifacts is no longer a recommended way of perhaps expressing yourself, communicating, you know, because it takes time, and it's of course it's easy to write a book, it's easy to write on paper, but to carve or create a statue that is very heavy-handed, of course you need material, you need the skill. Okay, but everybody can write, right? You can write your concerns, you can write your memoirs. In your room, right? Nowadays you have technology, of course, and you have the internet, you have bloggers, you have web blogs, and you have vlogs, and you can express whatever ideas you have. So we came a long way, and that's why the focus would be on sources that are visual, visual in the sense that you perhaps you have images, but this is the closest that you come to when it comes to Egyptians. But of course there are books and memoirs and all these kinds of things. Okay. Okay. So
can I ask you a question, Doctor, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Rana Najjar. In the first lecture, you told us there's resources, primary resources and secondary resources for our story, Cleopatra. Which one we can consider as primary resources, and which one is the secondary resources? We talk about statues, coins, and historical and poems and movies. Yeah. Which one we can take it as a primary resources and which one is the secondary resources?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. All of the above, all what you have mentioned are primary sources. If I ask you to write about Kilobatra, You're going to divide your work into primary sources and secondary sources. Okay, so the books that we have seen, the biographies, the poems, the coins and the statues, all of these are, primary sources. And then you go to read, reflections on these things, people writing reviews on them, people writing books about them. These are called secondary sources. But all of what you have seen, Horace's poem, for example, Plutarch's book of leaders is another source. Even Cassius Dai's work or reconstruction of the speech by Octavian, these are all primary sources. When you move to Cleopatra and the Egyptians, the statues that she had in her image, the coins that she ordered minted for her, these are all sources, primary sources. Okay? Are you getting the idea, everyone?
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome. So what is it that I think we're done with this part. As a ruler, how much do you know about Kilobatra? Was she a good one?
As a ruler, she was really strong and really good.
Okay, so let's look at the. Can you mute your mic? Okay. So let's look at the political scene in Egypt at the time of Cleopatra and a little bit prior. So Egypt was, of course, a big empire, but somehow prior to the age of Cleopatra, Egypt started to dwindle to become less in terms power, in terms of colonies and positions. Egypt lost its overseas positions. I mean, whether we're talking about Africa or other parts of the world. So when Cleopatra came, actually Egypt was not having the prestige that she used to enjoy. So when Cleopatra came, she had her own ambitions and she wanted to restore the Egyptian prestige, the Egyptian glory. And obviously so she's not to blame for whatever was happening at the time. So to blame Cleopatra for the decline that that Egypt was having or was witnessing is not very accurate. Again, she tried. She came at a time when there was a great deal of uncertainty and a great deal of violence and intrigues. She had to kind of accompany her father into exile at one point. So it wasn't that honey and milk that she was having in Egypt. She had to come back and to even kill her own brother in order to perhaps restore peace and stability. So as a member of the ruling family, she found herself at the center of a hotbed of intrigue and sudden violent death. Again, this was tough for her and for everybody else, and to blame it all on her and to say that she is to blame, that she is bad because of this would be a wrong assessment. Okay, this is all history, and this is all again, there is a great deal of bias and prejudice against her, and this prejudice and bias are inspired by, again, by Roman sources. Again, you would also remember that if you're looking at Kilobatra from the lenses, or from Roman lenses, you would say that she was a destructive sexual predator. Okay, but you also need to counterbalance this image with the idea that she was trying to forge alliances, political alliances, with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. So there is obviously more to the relationships that she had with these two guys than just admiration and love. No, she wanted to forge some kind of political alliance. Remember, Rome at the time was on top. Rome at the time was, way stronger than Egypt. Again, you also need to remember, if you say she had children from those two guys out of wedlock, and this is illegal and all this and illicit and everything, you need to also remember that perhaps she was trying to forge dynastic ties with the most powerful nation in the Mediterranean. Again, we have to put our feelings aside. We have to put our morals and ethics aside when we talk about her, and we need to adopt a pragmatic approach to what she did. We need to look at her decisions as political and pragmatic decisions. And if you look at them this way, you're likely to admire her. And then we move to the idea of Cleopatra as a projector of her own image. She, as the queen of the land, she would order coins to be minted in her name and her image, statues and sculptures. Again, this was perhaps one way of keeping her her own history. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known a great deal about her. We wouldn't have heard her voice. Again, this is called self-representation, and this is, it happens with lots of leaders. They order, pieces of sculpture and paintings to be made in their image. And as you can see, this is obviously one of the images. It's a sculpture. The relief sculpture on the southern exterior wall of the temple of Hothar at Dendera in Egypt, where, I don't know where Kilobatra is featured here. Obviously, she's the one on the left, if I'm not mistaken, if she's there in the first place. Okay, this is all about how big this artifact is and what it represents. So Kilobatra is the figure on the right. Okay, she is the figure on the right, not on the left, as you can see. She wears a headdress with holes on either, and this is description. Of course, typical of Egyptian leaders and rulers, she would kind of, link herself to the sun god, and she would say that she is the descendant of this sun god and stuff like that. Again, you would also always compare her to the other characters in the sculpture. and you're going to see that she is perhaps bigger in size, so that, and that would communicate this feeling of grandeur and this feeling of bombastousness, this feeling of importance that she is trying to project. Again, as a typical Egyptian ruler, she would embrace the ancient traditions of each. She would dress like them. She would associate herself with their gods and goddesses. She would behave like them. In doing so, she not only expresses her adherence to Egypt's past, but also uses this past to stress her own authority and legitimacy, that she is a legitimate, a rightful ruler. Again, one other way of projecting her image is one other way of this idea of self-representation would be the idea of the coins, where you can see her face. She asked for coins to be minted in her image and stuff. Again, this is also part of this project that all Egyptian rulers engage in. We didn't have that with ancient Egyptians, the pharaohs, but we had it with the Cleopatra and her dynasty. Again, images and all these kinds of things. Again, when you look at her and how she is represented, she has a measure of Hellenism to her. Hellenistic means Greek. Remember, she was partly Greek, and that would be reflected in her style, in her hairstyle, and even the color of the piece of sculpture. And then there is talk about her jewelry. Okay, so now that we have spoken about Kilobatra, now that we have digged into the sources, whether they are Roman or otherwise, what's your assessment of the character of Kilobatra? Do you still think, those who think that she is a those who still think that she is a hateful individual, do you guys still believe that she is as hateful as she was, or as she has always been for you? Those who believe, do you still think that she is this good individual that Hello, are you still there?
Yes, Mister, I never thought she was hateful, like from the beginning.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Yeah. If you are on the side of those who believe that she was such a nice lady, well, we're trying to see whether you are still holding this opinion or not.
Yes, I'm still holding. So.
Okay. Do you have now, if you are in some kind of argument, if there is a debate and Cleopatra is the debatable personality, so and you are on the team or on the side who believes that she is such an admirable personality, so what what pieces of evidence would you give in order to prove that she is such um, a nice individual, that she was good and everything? Can you share with us how
I
would
mean,
you see that?
I do my research. I do my research, but now I know that she was like a good ruler. She served Egypt well. She tried her best to keep it independent and to keep it strong. But sadly, she failed. Yeah, I don't have much evidence right now to give. But I probably research and have some good pieces to share.
Would you use Roman sources,
Of course,
perhaps to
because
say, perhaps not to back you up, because obviously Roman sources are not going to back you up if you say that she is good, but
yeah,
you may be referring to to them to say that there has been injustice meted out against her, right?
yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. What's your name?
Pascal.
Ah, Pascal. Okay, thank you, Pascal. Can we have somebody else? Perhaps those who believe that she wasn't such a wonderful lady, um, does or did what we say about her, or what we have been saying about, does it confirm what you have been thinking about all through? Those who doesn't think that she was such a good individual, do you still hold to your belief that she wasn't? I remember we had a nice gentleman the other day, not the other day, the day before the other day, and he was referring to the fact that he doesn't like her. Do you still?
Sir,
Yeah, yes. What's your name?
Sattam.
Satan. Yeah, hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. I don't think that she was a particularly bad person. However, I have always believed that she let her people down. Despite that, from what we've studied, I now changed my belief that perhaps we shouldn't judge her at all until we have clear facts, because everything we have, almost everything, has been clearly biased against her.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, and the Egyptian sources were not any help, right?
Yes, because we obviously all know that the Romans destroyed one of the greatest libraries in world history that was in Egypt.
Were they the Romans, or are you sure about this?
Yes, the Alexandrian library.
Was it set ablaze by the Romans? Are you sure? Was it the Romans, or Leonard? There was this idea that when Amr ibn al-As came to Egypt, there were lots of. Are we
There
talking?
were there were two major destruction of Middle Eastern history.
Yes.
The first was by the Romans during her time, and a couple of thousand years later, or about 1,000 years later, the Mongols came again and destroyed the Iraqi and Egyptian libraries.
But this was way back. I mean, you're talking about, no, something is missing in the middle, where we're talking about the Arab conquest of Egypt. And I don't know whether those were, I think it's historians refer to the fact that the Alexandria Library was set ablaze or set on fire by the invading or the conquering Arabs. I don't know.
No, it was burned in 48 BC
Okay.
by Julius Caesar's army.
So obviously we have more than one fire, right?
Yes, two major fires,
Yes.
at least on two periods.
Yes.
One in 2000 years ago by Julius Caesar during Cleopatra's reign. And then 1,000 years later, during the Islamic period, by the Mongols, by Genghis Khan, and
this is a third fire, by the way. What you're referring to is perhaps a third fire. But anyway, let's keep to the first fire, which was by the Romans. And like Saddam is saying, if they had done what people are saying that they had done when it comes to setting fire on the Alexandria Library, I think lots of resources and sources about Kilobatra and her family and her dynasty and other people would have been destroyed, and perhaps that would be that would account for the lack of resources and sources when it comes to Egyptian history at the age and at the time of Kilobatra. So if we don't have enough resources about Kilobatra and enough sources, Egyptian sources, I think the least we can do would be to give her the benefit of the doubt and not to subscribe to biased and prejudiced, interpretations of her every move and her behavior, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, if you ask me, and now that we have read together, now that we have gone through these different, I would take whatever the Romans are saying about her with a grain of salt. I wouldn't accept what they say at its face value. I need to also know that this is political, and it has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with ethics. And whatever you wouldn't accept in religion or in ethics, you wouldn't, you wouldn't apply the same measures when it comes to politics, because politics is the art of whatever is possible, and whatever is possible can also be morally, morally not very good. Politics is a big game, and you have to be part of the game. And like they say, if you are in war, you use all the weapons and the methods, even those that you wouldn't use in normal circumstances for moral and for religious reasons. The same applies to politics sometimes, right? Any other questions before we move to our other friend, Christopher Marlowe? Hello. Okay.
No, doctor, thank you.
Okay.
No.
Okay, let's move to very quickly to Christopher Marlowe. I'm going to introduce Christopher Marlowe, and next time, inshallah, we can talk about him and about his creation in detail, inshallah. So Christopher Marlowe, we're having everyone, and when I talk about Christopher Marlowe, I need to think of the associations of the name, whether it triggers any thoughts and ideas at the back of your minds or not. Like what we did with Cleopatra. When I say Cleopatra, it has to, you need to think, you need to stop and think of the associations of the words, right? So when I say Christopher Marlowe, does the name ring any bells at the back of your minds? I'm asking you.
He make a play. I think he make a play about Faustus or
Okay,
Dr.
so,
Faustus. Yes.
Okay, so one of his plays. This is the associations and the thoughts that it triggers at the back of the mind of our colleague. The fact that he wrote a play by the name of Dr. Faustus. Any other associations? Any other ideas? Yes, go ahead.
and I think he charm, and he controlling his good, like that.
What? No, can you come again? Say what you said again, please.
Christopher Marlowe. I think he controlling his god, and he like charm, like
Okay.
that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mute.
He was known to be problematic.
He was what?
Problematic.
Yeah, he was controversial and problematic. Any? Okay, go on. He was what?
He was known to push limits. He challenged religious status quo and the social norm.
Okay, interesting. These are interesting ideas.
And
And perhaps, okay, go on.
He might actually have influenced William Shakespeare.
Yeah, yes, okay, interesting. They were contemporaries. Contemporaries means that they used to live in the same age, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, you need to read Christopher Marlowe and Cézanne and Kilobatra under this big name or idea that we spoke, the idea of reputations. And why did we feature Christopher Marlowe and not Shakespeare, for example? And obviously Shakespeare, it's the high and mighty Shakespeare. Why have we chosen Christopher Marlowe and not Shakespeare? Why have we chosen Cleopatra and not another Egyptian queen? And they are obviously a lot. Again, we're talking about reputations, and we're talking about reputations, whether those reputations are positive or negative. Okay, and we're focusing on how reputations are made and why somebody would be reputed and famous, and why some other body who is as talented perhaps wouldn't be as famous. Okay, and we focus on those elements of controversy when it comes to certain celebrities. Again, if you look at Kilobatra, we have seen that she is a disputed, or she has a disputed character or reputation. The fact that people disagree on her. People are polarized. Some people are all for her, and some other people are anti-Kilobatra. With Christopher Marlowe, we have perhaps a similar attitude, where Christopher Marlowe was also a disputed and a contested figure, in the sense that as an artist or as a literary figure, you would expect him to be, decent, to be quiet, to be promoting feelings of perhaps austerity, feelings of calmness. This is what people normally expect of literature and art, to soothe you into a state of peace of mind, a state of creativity, a state of tranquility. But to have a literary figure who would set fires, who would pick up fights, who would get killed in a fight at the age of 29, I think we have a problem. Not us. Perhaps that would be natural in our world of late, but perhaps in the 16th century and in the 17th century, when Christopher Marlowe was up and running, was kicking, that was not okay. So Christopher Marlowe is a controversial figure, a figure that has people polarized over. There are people who admire him, and there are people who also denigrate and attack him. Again, this is not without good reasons. There must have been things in his life that would trigger those polarizing attitudes. And this is actually our work today, and next time we'll dig deep into history. We'll go to the period when Christopher Marlowe was operating, and we're going to look at the age. And the age in which he was operating is, by the way, called the Renaissance or the Renaissance. We'll talk about this period in terms of, the artistic and the literary scene and the literary climate. And we'll talk about Christopher Marlowe himself and his biography and what he did and what he didn't. And then we are going to make the transition to one of his creations, one of the plays that he wrote, and it is a very famous play by the name of Dr. Faustus. We call it a tragedy, and we'll get to know what a tragedy is when the time is right. We'll talk about Dr. Faustus. We're going to analyze Dr. Faustus, the play, and we're going to kind of establish links and connections and correspondence between Christopher Marlowe, the creator, and Dr. Faustus, his creation. Do they have closeness? Do they have correspondence and barrels? Are they barrel in any way? Yeah, this is what we're going to see happening. We're going to see that there is a great deal of connections between Christopher Marlowe and Dr. Faustus. Okay, so Christopher Marlowe, everyone. And before we talk about Christopher Marlowe, we need to perhaps talk about the age. And the age that we're talking about is, we're talking about perhaps late 16th century and early 17th century. We're talking about a time when Shakespeare was also operating. Shakespeare was a contemporary to Christopher Marlowe. They used to perhaps be literary rivals. Christopher Marlowe wrote interesting works of art works, and also Shakespeare at the time. And somehow Christopher Marlowe was compared to Shakespeare, and some people would even take the extreme view that had Christopher Marlowe lived, he could have been even better than Shakespeare. Again, Shakespeare lived and he wrote lots of 37, I think, 37 plays, and they are, he is one, if not, he is one of the best, if not the best dramatist ever. Christopher Marlowe died very untimely. He was killed at the age of 29, quite untimely. Again, why? Because of his attitudes, the fact that he has, issues and problems when it comes to his character and all these kinds of. Again, we're reading the play against we're reading Christopher Marlowe and also his play against the age. And the age is called the Renaissance or the Renaissance, which means rebirth. What is it that people were, giving life to, reviving? They were reviving old traditions, the literary and the artistic and the philosophical traditions of the Greeks and the Romans. So we'll talk about that. What is it that we know about Christopher Marlowe? We know that he came from a poor family, and he made it big in the world of art and literature. He was very talented, and he, because of his talents, he could secure a place in one of the big universities in England at the time, which is the University of Cambridge. He went there and studied for some time. So he was an educated writer. Again, the only issue that we have with him would be the fact that he was much of a macho, if you like, somebody who wouldn't settle for easy answers, whether on the level of his personal life or on the level of perhaps science and religion. And he is known as a maverick, and a maverick is somebody who wouldn't, again, say or give easy yeses, if you like. He would challenge things. He wouldn't take things for granted. He would ask questions, and obviously asking questions would be irritating and worrying for some people. So the bottom line is that we are in the spectacle of a literary figure who would challenge all the existing orthodoxies of the time, whether those orthodoxies were religious, sexual, or political. Do you have any questions so far?
No, doctor, thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay, so Taib, we're going to stop on this note and with this item. What I want you to do for next time, I would like you to read the chapter on Christopher Marlowe, so that when you come, when we come, inshallah, next time, we can have material to discuss and talk about. Also remember that next week you will have your first quiz. I think the BCC, the course coordinator of the course, has already posted announcements on the LMS. Did you get that? Did you get that?
Yes, doctor.
Yes,
Okay.
we got emails.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and I think you know what you are in for. The quiz is, you know, the questions are normally that this applies to perhaps only the first quiz, multiple choice questions. I would like you to read the chapter on Cleopatra very thoroughly and very carefully, and I'm sure you will be able to answer the questions very easily, inshallah. So do you have any questions before I leave?
No.
Thank you.
Doctor, the quiz 10 minutes?
Is it written 10 or 15 minutes? I don't know. Go and check the LMS. I'm not going to do the quiz
They
myself.
said between 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's fair enough. 15 minutes would be enough for the questions that you'll be asked. I'm sure you'll finish.
Please, doctor, because 10 minutes is not enough.
Inshallah.
10 minutes, really, it's not enough.
No, I mean, if you consider the nature of the questions and the questions themselves.
How much? How much questions?
You mean how many questions? I don't know, perhaps 5 or something.
How many questions?
You're not going to
Guys,
write
don't worry,
essays,
it's
or
not final exam.
Yeah, it's only
Don't
for
worry,
5
it's such a
marks,
quiz, yeah.
and it's also the fact that it is multiple choice, which means that you're going to choose. But you don't need, you know, more time. But let's wait and see. Again, I'll see you next week, inshallah. Happy National Day, and I wish you all the best. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Thank you.
Have
a nice day.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you so much, doctor.
Thank you,
Have a nice
doctor.
day.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bye bye, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
Have a great